Hello and welcome to the new health system tutorial. In this tutorial, we're going to be making a project really similar to this one. In this project, we have a lot of objects and a kind of cool scene with some cool music, and we can actually click on these objects, and when we click, a particle system pops up, and the object also gets destroyed once we've clicked enough. So, let's get started. Alright guys, so let's get started. Now, first things first, before I forget to let you know, this scene is mainly from a asset pack, and we're also going to be using another couple asset packs that mainly are going to help us with the particles and the sounds. But we're going to be doing all the code. I'll leave all the assets in the description. They're all free to download in the asset store. So let's get started. So I have this set up. It's a camera here. This is already set up with the scene. And what we're going to want to do is start with a couple of things. So first off, we're going to pick an object, right? Whichever one, it doesn't really matter. Let's pick, for example, this barrel here. And let's find its collider. Now, this collider is what's going to help us detect the point where we click with the mouse. So, to do this, we're going to actually need a scripts folder. Well, you don't need a scripts folder, but I'm going to make a scripts folder anyway. Scripts. Wait, let me just fix that. And inside the scripts folder, we're going to be making a script called Damageable Entity. So, Damageable Entity. Right. And we're going to be adding this script to this object that contains the mesh collider. Right. Let's quickly add it. Oops. Let's add it in here. Right. And aside from this script, we're also going to be adding a script to the camera, which is going to be the script that adds the damage to the objects we click on. So we're going to be calling this one camera damage applier. Now let's quickly add this one as well. And once we've added this one, we can start programming. So let's start with the damageable entity. And first thing we're going to need to do in here is just get rid of these functions. We're not really going to need them for now. And we're going to add a serialized field private float max health. That's the first thing we're going to need, is a value that determines the health of the object. Now, aside from this value, we're also going to need another one, which is also going to be a float, and it's going to be the current health. So this is going to be the health the object has when it's at maximum, so at the beginning of the game, and this is its current health at any point in time. So what we're going to do is add an awake function, and in here we're just going to say current health is max health. So this way the object always starts with whichever value we've set for max health. Now, we're going to need a function called damage, and this function is going to have a parameter that's going to be a float called damage. And what this is going to do is basically just apply damage to this object. This is going to be called from the camera damage applier that we have here, and it's going to apply that damage. So the way to do this is just simply current health minus equals damage. Now this will just subtract from the current health the damage we've added, and it will just add it back to the current health. Aside from this, we're also going to need to check if the object is now dead. So basically, if the current health is below 0. The way to do this, we're just going to simply have a public boolean. We're going to call it is dead, and this is just going to contain return current health is less than or equal to 0. This is just so other objects can also tell if this object is dead, in case we want to do something special if this object is dead. So in here, we're just going to go and like this is dead. And if the object is dead, we're going to call a function something like handle death. And we're going to create this function now, private void handle death. And it's not going to take any parameters. This is all fine. And the only thing we're going to do in here is basically just destroy this game object. So we just destroy this object if the object is dead. Now, we have the script pretty much done for now. It doesn't have any effects, but we're going to be adding those later. So, now we got to go into the camera damage applier, and in here we're going to do something, just delete these functions, and we're going to need a serialized field, which is going to be a private float, and we're going to call it damage. This is basically just the damage that the camera is going to apply every single time we click on an object that has a damageable entity component on it. So, now, we go into an update function, and in here we're going to do a couple of things. We're going to start by raycasting from the camera's position, but through the mouse. So the way to do this is we create a ray object, and we say it's equal to, you can do camera.main, or you can do get component camera. Now I'm just going to do get component camera, but you can do camera.main as well. And it's going to be dot screen point to ray. Now this just takes a point on the screen and it passes a ray through it from the position of the camera. And the point on the screen is just input.mouse position, since Unity already has this value built in. Aside from this, we're also going to be needing a raycast hit. This is completely necessary if you're ever going to do a raycast. And the way to do a raycast, I assume you already know how to do it, but the way to do it is just simply physics.raycast, and you pass the ray and then out hit, and that will give us the information from the hit on the hit variable. Now we need to know if what we've hit is a damageable entity object. And the way to do this is just simply saying damageable entity, let's say entity hit, and we check if its transform has a damageable entity component. Now if this value is null, then it means the object we hit doesn't actually have a damageable entity. But if it's not null, then it does have one. So we're just going to do if entity hit is not null. So that means we've hit an entity. And we're just going to do, actually let's do it over here. Say if input dot get mouse button down 0, which is the left click. Then we're going to cast this raycast. This will save us some time on every update. And now if we click the mouse, we shoot a raycast through the position of the mouse. And then since we now have a reference to the entity, what we do is just simply entity hit dot damage, and then we apply the damage that the camera has. Just like that. And now this is actually pretty much it for the simple stuff. So let's get in here and let's let Unity reload. Alright, let's check everything is fine. Let's go in here and damage is set, and then in here we have our barrel and it has max health 100. Right, so now we're just gonna play and we're gonna click on this barrel 5 times, 3, 4, 5, and then the barrel disappears. Now the problem is we don't actually have any visual representation of its death aside from the destruction. So what we're gonna be doing now is we're gonna be adding particles when the object gets destroyed. So we're just going to spawn some particles. Now this is actually also pretty simple. So the way to do this is we're actually going to be needing a variable in here, and we're going to call it, it's going to be a game object which is going to contain our particles, and we're going to call it destroy particles. Just like that. And these destroy particles are also going to be spawned whenever the, oops, not here. We don't want to do it here. We want to do it on damageable entity. So on the entity, since each entity can have its own destruction particles, in case you have different materials and different stuff, we're gonna have our destroy particles, and then every time, well, the only time that the entity dies, we just go instantiate, and that's the destroy particles. And then we just spawn them at transform.position, and I like to add a up vector, which basically just moves the particles when it spawns them 1 unit up. This is just so you can see it better in case the object is on the ground. And then transform.rotation. So this will just spawn the particles whenever the object is destroyed. Now let's get in here and destroy particles. Let's choose whichever ones, it doesn't really matter. And as you can see, once we click 5 times, it spawns the destroy particles. Now that is about it for this tutorial, and please don't forget to subscribe and like, and I'll see you in the next one.